Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Now I'm going to start off this video by saying boxing fans, a lot of boxing fans have something called, they have like a double standard. When it comes to their favorite fighter, they will give them credit for doing something. But then when it comes to a other fighter that they are not too fond of, they won't give them credit for doing the exact same thing that their favorite fighter did. Do you guys remember back in 2014? It's crazy. It's almost going to be 4 years now. But yeah, 3.5 years ago. Do you guys remember when Terence Crawford, Bud Crawford, when he faced Yuriorkis Gamboa? If you guys remembered, back in 2014, Terence Crawford was a champion at 135. This was before he moved up to 140. He was a champion at 135. At the time, Yuriorkis Gamboa was undefeated. He was undefeated. Now, if you guys know anything about Yuriorkis Gamboa, then you guys will know that Yuriorkis Gamboa was kind of in the same position that Guillermo Rigondeaux was in when he fought Vasyl Lomachenko. Back in 2014, if you go back to like the early, like 2010, 2011, back then, Yuriorkis Gamboa was supposed to be the next big thing. You know, he was a champion, he was unbeaten, he was Cuban, just like Rigondeaux. He was fighting at 126 and he was knocking everybody out. Then he made some bad decisions with his promotion. He left Top Rank, he joined 50 Cent's promotion, and he kind of became irrelevant, right? But then in 2014, he got an opportunity to get a big fight because he really hadn't had a big fight. Kind of like Rigondeaux. You remember how Guillermo Rigondeaux, he schooled Nonito Donaire, and then for years he didn't have a big fight. Like literally, he didn't have a big fight because everybody was ducking him. So what did he do? He was forced to get the big fight with Vasyl Lomachenko. Well, Yuriorkis Gamboa was in the same position, but it was a little different. The only thing that was different was, instead of people ducking him, he just made bad business decisions. So in 2014, he decided to move up 2 weight divisions. He was fighting at 126, and he moved up to 135 to face the then unbeaten Terence Crawford. So this was a fight between 2 unbeaten fighters. Terence Crawford at 135 for his belts, and Yuriorkis Gamboa, an undefeated fighter who was a champion at 126. He moved up 2 weight divisions, right? 130 and then 135, super featherweight and then lightweight. And the fight happens. And what happens? And by the way, Yuriorkis Gamboa was also a gold medalist. He won gold in the Olympics, just like Rigondeaux. Well, what happens? And he was also, just like Rigondeaux, considered a top quality guy, a top talent. What happens? Yuriorkis Gamboa gets brutally knocked out by Terence Crawford. Bud Crawford, he kind of had some trouble figuring him out for the first like 3 rounds, but then he switched stance and he just beat him up, and he knocked him out. And I specifically remember, now back then I wasn't making videos, but of course I was a subscriber to many channels, and I specifically remember a bunch of people not giving Terence Crawford credit. A bunch of people not giving him credit. And one of the common anomalies that I kept seeing were people just kept saying, well, Terence Crawford, he beat a smaller guy. He beat a smaller guy. Yuriorkis Gamboa was little. He was a little man. I'm not going to give him credit. Why would I give Terence Crawford credit? Oh, wow, because he's Cuban and he was unbeaten and he was a former gold medalist. This guy was a smaller guy. That was the main thing they kept saying. They kept saying he was a smaller man moving up 2 weight divisions just to discredit Terence Crawford. They kept saying it. To this day, 3 years later, you still see people saying stuff like not giving Crawford credit for beating Yuriorkis Gamboa. You still see, and by the way, Yuriorkis Gamboa was way more in his prime back then than he is now. And back then, Yuriorkis Gamboa, I've always thought he was a top talent. But a lot of people, even some uploaders, refuse to give him credit. Refuse to give Crawford credit. What I find odd about that, and hilarious and double standard about that, is fast forward 2017, Vasyl Lomachenko is fighting at 130 And just like Terence Crawford, his next fight is against Guillermo Rigondeaux. Just like Terence Crawford versus Yuriorkis Gamboa, both Vasyl Lomachenko, well, Vasyl Lomachenko wasn't unbeaten because he has one loss, but Guillermo Rigondeaux was unbeaten. Guillermo Rigondeaux was unbeaten, right? Just like Yuriorkis Gamboa was. Not only that, Guillermo Rigondeaux, just like Yuriorkis Gamboa, moved up 2 weight divisions, right? He was fighting at 122. He moved up to 126, then 130. I actually think it was worse for Guillermo Rigondeaux because when when Terence Crawford fought Yuriorkis Gamboa was only 32 years old. Yeah, he was only 32 years old. And I remember there was even some people saying, oh, Yuriorkis Gamboa, he's past it. Yet Yuriorkis Gamboa was unbeaten, and he was only 32 years old. Now compare that to Vasyl Lomachenko, to Guillermo Rigondeaux. Guillermo Rigondeaux was 37. He was 37, so he was actually 5 years older than Yuriorkis Gamboa was when he fought Terence Crawford and lost to Terence Crawford. And one thing I also find ironic is that Guillermo Rigondeaux was even smaller than Gamboa because Gamboa is 5'6", and he's the guy who turned pro at 126, and he moved up 2 weight divisions, 130 to 135. Yet Guillermo Rigondeaux is, and Terence Crawford is 5'8", yet Guillermo Rigondeaux is even shorter. And he's even smaller naturally. Vasyl Lomachenko is 5'7". Guillermo Rigondeaux is like 5'3", so he's actually 4 inches shorter than him. And he's a guy who turned pro at like 118. So even though it says he moved up 2 weight divisions, he's really moving up 3 weight divisions from his natural weight that is 118. And what I find ironic about that, and why all this comes together, is when Vasyl Lomachenko schooled Guillermo Rigondeaux, he got praised for it. He got a bunch of credit for it. A bunch of channels gave him credit. A bunch of his fans were praising him. Oh, he schooled him. Yeah, he's the pound for pound king now. Vasyl Lomachenko is the pound for pound king. He schooled Guillermo Rigondeaux, who was unbeaten, who was a gold medalist. And what I find ironic about that is some of these same uploaders, some of these same people, when Terence Crawford did the exact same thing to Yuriorkis Gamboa, and Guillermo Rigondeaux were in the same situation where they were both smaller guys and both moved up. They were both undefeated, and they were both gold medalists. When Terence Crawford did it, he didn't get credit. Every one of these channels, every one of these subscribers was saying stuff like, "Oh, he was too big." So what I find odd is, how come you guys were not giving Terence Crawford credit? Why were you saying he was too big for Yuriorkis Gamboa? Why were you saying Yuriorkis Gamboa was too old? Yet in the same token, you'll then come on here and say, well, this proves you'll kiss Vasyl Lomachenko's ass and say that this proves Vasyl Lomachenko's pound for pound king. He schooled Rigondeaux. Meanwhile, and not talk about Rigondeaux's age or anything like that. Meanwhile, Rigondeaux, or not talk about the fact that he's a much smaller man. Meanwhile, just like Terence Crawford versus Yuriorkis Gamboa, Guillermo Rigondeaux is a much smaller man than Vasyl Lomachenko. He's 2-3 weight divisions below him, and he's actually in a worse situation than Yuriorkis Gamboa was because he's older than Yuriorkis Gamboa. He's about 5 years older than Yuriorkis Gamboa was when he fought Terence Crawford, because Terence Crawford was only like 5 years younger than Yuriorkis Gamboa when they fought. While this is Vasyl Lomachenko is almost 10 years older than 10 years younger than Guillermo Rigondeaux, and he's much bigger. But like I said, they'll praise him and give him all types of credit, Vasyl Lomachenko, when he did the exact same thing that Terence Crawford did. That's why I said there's double standards in boxing, man. Truly double standards between a lot of these biased ass boxing channels. A lot of you boxing channels are biased, man. I'll tell you straight up, you're biased. A lot of you dudes. And a lot of you guys are, you have double standards for your favorite fighters. Your favorite fighters. I like Vasyl Lomachenko, man, but he's not no unbeatable, and he's not doing anything else than that any other great fighter has done in the past. But you guys are kissing his ass like he's some greatest thing since sliced bread, man. Get out of here, man. Anyway, guys, that's all I have to say. Please subscribe. Please let me know the video. And I'm out, cuz.